Hey, thanks for tuning in. Real quickly, before we get started, I'd like to thank my friends at Tattoo SEO for making today's episode possible. Tattoo SEO specializes in search engine optimization for tattooers and tattoo shops, so they help you to come up higher in organic online search results for people looking to get tattooed in your area. That's kind of a generic explanation. What they can really do is to help put the clients who are looking for your type of work in front of you. So whether you are a street shop trying to just bring generic business through the door, or a single person private studio focused on large scale custom tattooing, they can drive the customers looking for what you do directly to your door. Now, something else that Tattoo SEO does that I think is invaluable and really sets them apart from any competition is that they can promote you for short periods of time wherever you may be traveling. So if you're like me and you travel to do guest spots or to work at tattoo conventions, they can promote you leading up to the actual event that you're working to ensure that you're actually tattooing at the show rather than twiddling your thumbs and watching everyone else tattoo. I'll give you a real life example. So last year I was offered a booth at a show in Arizona about 3 weeks before the show was actually taking place. So I wanted to go and tattoo, but I hadn't promoted myself for that show leading up. So I had no clients in that part of the country and didn't want to sit around and not tattoo. So I reached out to my buddy Tony Sink at Tattoo SEO and asked if they could help to promote me in the short period of time left leading up to that event. And lo and behold, I was booked solid by the time the event got there. I tattooed all weekend and it was a complete success. So whether you're going to do a week-long guest spot in Southern California, doing a tattoo convention in New York City, they can help to promote you for those periods of time leading up to the events. That is a huge, huge benefit for working with Tattoo SEO. So I definitely recommend that you give these guys a shot by clicking the link below and signing up. You will get 50% off of your first month if you mention that you heard about them on Fireside. Thank you guys for supporting what we do and enjoy the episode.
I did, yeah.
We did that shit 3 times.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I recorded on my phone and it fucking and I didn't have the mic on, so we did this shit and you're watching it and we're
you
like,
can't hear anything.
and so the last time we were just joking around and we were like, whoa, and then he would say it back and then we just went into it. But
Yeah, that was awesome. All right, are we rolling on everything? Yeah. Oh, we look awesome. Check out that clapboard. Holy shit. Whoa, get some. Hey, welcome to the Fireside Tattoo Podcast, the official podcast of the Fireside Tattoo Network. Take 1 with Jesse Smith at the Richmond Tattoo Arts Festival. I always mess up what the actual name of every show
listen,
is.
man, if you don't know the name of my show,
It's always like all of them. It's like I know where I am. I know I basically just call it like, oh, you know, we're at the Richmond show or we're at the such and such show because everyone's names it's.
we are at the Richmond Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
Yeah, exactly. That's the way I feel most of the time.
But our name is worse. So when I took over the convention, it was called the Richmond Tattoo Art Festival. Okay. And I told my partner, I was like, look, man, I want to start infusing art. So can we change the name to the Richmond Tattoo and Arts Festival?
Yeah.
And then we started throwing everything and all this stuff, and we started trying to get sponsors in so we can do more things. And the sponsors are like, hey, if you promote it as a music festival, then you'll get more sponsorships. So I was like, okay, Richmond Tattoo Art and Music Festival.
Oh. Is that true? The sponsors are more...
Yeah, man, it's crazy.
Really?
Like once I got into this promotional game, I'm like, all right, the goal, of course, always is to make sure that the experience for the artist is good. And there's all these variables involved in making that happen. And, you know, getting money together for that is difficult, you know, so getting sponsors involved is really important to kind of like fund these cool things that you can't do at other tattoo conventions because they're, you know, it's a bottom dollar type thing.
Right.
So, you know, I'm just trying to figure out a way of like, you know, getting enough money together to do what I need to do, help out the artist, get the clients happy, and then at the same time, hopefully make a little bit of money in the end.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah. We talked about that a little bit in the last interview. That's the real challenge, is just to scrape anything out of this. It's crazy to run a business where you see plenty of like revenue slide right by you, and you're like, how do I not grab any of this stuff?
Dude, it's crazy. Yeah. And then as soon as people feel like you're making money, because they always think you're making more money than you are, then they're like, oh, I got to get some of that. You know, like I need a raise, or the fucking hotel does this shit to us all the time. their main dude was at one of our shows, and he saw all the people there, and he's like, "Ooh, we need to start raising their rent." And he starts raising our rent. I had to have a talk with him last week, and I was just like, "Look, man, I'm not trying to be greedy. I just want to throw a really good show." And I said, if you keep doing what you're doing, I cannot rationalize throwing a show for the amount of work that we put in and what we get back out of it.
Right.
So it's super frustrating. You know? But
I'm
of course
sure.
it's rewarding in the end. You know, it's like there's different ways of payment. You know,
Yeah.
hanging out with people and getting people that tell you they had a good time and all that stuff feels good.
Right, right. Well, this for us, this is one of those shows that's awesome for a tattooer and miserable for a podcaster because everyone's tattooing. Everyone's tattooing all weekend long. So it's funny, like when we're, deciding what shows to podcast at, it's like, or what shows we're doing. It's like, all right, are we tattooing at that show or are we podcasting at that show? Because, some of these like this, like people are like, you closed down a couple hours ago and there's still people in there trying to like wrap up tattoos. Like no way to catch anyone for a podcast. But I had a blast. I thought it was fantastic. I haven't been to this show in 20 plus years, I guess. So that was.
You got your pin. Where's your pin?
Yeah,
man? I gave it to you.
I have it. I have it somewhere. I just don't have anything to put it on. I should put it on this hat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Real quick though, why is it that sponsors would pay more or be more willing to sponsor a music festival than an art festival?
Dude, I'm learning so much stuff as a promoter, and it's because the average person can enjoy music. The average person doesn't give a shit about art. So it's like you have to have something. If you say tattoo, you're going to get this crowd, right?
Yeah.
If you say art, you're going to get this crowd. If you say music, you're going to get this crowd. Yeah. So it's like we were talking with Red Bull, and Red Bull was like, okay, next year what we can do is we can bring in the stage. They'll actually pay for the stage. They'll do this, that, and whatever, and that's all expensive shit.
Yeah.
So if we can get them to kind of sponsor this, we got Sailor Jerry that sponsors like the after party and stuff like that. So it's just taking a little bit of weight off our shoulders, and so we can focus on other things that we think are more important, and they can focus on the things that make the people coming through the door happy, you know. And if the people coming through the door are happy, you got a show with a lot of people. I've told everybody this: I can have the most fucked up show in the world, but if it's busy, the artists are gonna be happy about it. So we just focused on trying to keep it busy.
Yeah, well, that worked absolutely. So we were talking about before we went on air, the hitting on professionalism in the tattoo industry, which we've dealt with a decent amount lately on the show, but more specifically the kind of delicate balance, whether it's in a show like this or in a shop setting, between keeping a client happy, keeping an artist happy, keeping an owner in business or a promoter in business in the case of conventions. And so what you've done this show, this was your fourth year of that. Yeah. So before we get into like the shop side of it, what have you learned? Does it work where if you make one, if the artist is happy, is the client happy, or if the client's happy, is the artist happy? What have you learned doing this over 4 years about that balance?
It's a delicate balance. It's we've got a thick traditional group in this show, and of course they're just like, oh, you're bringing in all these celebrity tattoo artists, blah blah blah, and they're not super happy about that. But I'm like, look, man, you're benefiting from the crowd that comes in here, and like I said, if it's busy in here, they're happy. So, it's trying to figure out where the big fires are and putting them out, and just trying to balance everything, and my crew, I gotta look out for my crew. My team is a hard-working team. They're super, super, like, on point, and it's like, I pay them like $13 an hour, and it's like they deserve more than that. Yeah. And, I give them health, dental, all that stuff, and it's like I want to take care of them.
Yeah.
So then when
this is your team, not just for the show.
It's my team in general.
Really?
I mean, I've got 5 businesses. So I've got my tattoo shop. I've got the convention. I've got the Method tattoo system.
Yeah.
And then I've got the charity out there. Excuse me. I've got the charity out there, the Giving Arts Foundation. Right. Then I've got my clothing line, One Trick Pony.
Oh yeah.
And so all of them, it's kind of like my team is like an amoeba. They just kind of move with what businesses need the most attention. Yeah. So it's like this weekend, as the convention gets closer, they all start focusing on that. And after the convention, they start focusing on the shop. And they're awesome, man. It's taken me 8 years to get this team. And they're just like, they're like 24-year-olds that are just fucking workers. They show up on time. They don't bitch. I don't have to tell them to work. They just work,
Yeah, man,
and it's super hard to get that team,
Yeah. So it has to be hard to put systems and processes in place for people like that when they're just moving to whatever needs to. Is it more like that? What do you call that? like real popular. There's a book. It's not Scrum. Is it Scrum? No, maybe. There's a book called Scrum where it's basically like everyone like piles in to do one job until it's done, and then they move on to the next, rather than like
Yeah.
a more kind of corporate structure, or a structure where you have specific systems and processes in place and people who serve specific purposes. I
Yeah.
think it's called a Scrum approach. Is that kind of what is that? Say what? The Amish. Yeah. No, I think I'm right. I think it's Scrum. But anyways, it's you have to it's got to make it hard whenever there are. I mean, I'm sure there's specific things that need to be done in the majority of those businesses, like the tattoo shop, for example, that it runs a certain way. But whenever attention has to be given to this, or I would imagine with the charity, it's not always doing the same thing, right? You're raising money for at different points, and you're distributing it at different times, and it's probably not. It's not like a set process. It's all free flowing, huh?
And that's been the hardest thing, is like, just trying to create a rhythm. Thing is, if you start creating a rhythm as a business owner, then you start falling behind. You always got to be thinking different, and you got to have a team that's able to move with those. I mean, and I'm really hard to keep up with, because I'm like, ooh, it'd be cool if we do glory hole tattoos this year.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, how are we doing that? Well, we need to make this board with a hole in it, and then we're going to do da-da-da-da. And I have to, like, really write it all out, because what's in my head, it's just like art, Like, you can have this cool creative idea, and you can tell someone about it. They're going to see something totally different. So you have to actually draw it so they can see it.
Yeah.
So a lot of it's just, like I said, I just got a great team, and they're super motivated. I'm super lucky to have them.
Yeah, yeah. What do you take back from what you learned doing conventions? What do you take back and plug into the shop or into any one of these businesses? How do they translate, or do they?
Well, the convention's awesome, because with a convention you're dealing. So in the shop I'm dealing with anywhere between 6 and 10 artists, and trying to keep everybody happy in that situation. With a convention you're dealing with 170 artists. With this one, you're dealing with the vendors, you're dealing with the band, you're dealing with the hotel, you're dealing with insurance companies, all this shit. So it's almost like, I feel like the convention's like that game Mousetrap. You remember that?
Yeah, yeah.
So you put all these pieces in place, and then you let it go for the weekend, and you just see where shit works and where it doesn't, and then you take that information down and you try to make it better for the next year. But I've learned a lot about marketing. There's just so much stuff I've learned, because there's so much more on the line. So like I said, if I don't have the halls full, then it's not a success in my mind. So what I've done is I'm like, okay, I've outgrown what I can potentially do with this, so I start seeking out professionals. And then those professionals, they work with me on the convention, are like, dude, I want to work with you on these other things. So I bring them in on the other stuff. So it's just a good way, because it's such a massive project. It's like, once I understand this, then doing this is easy.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, yeah. So will you bring, like, for example, what's Megan? Is that her name? That was doing some.
Megan.
Megan's doing some of the marketing for this. When you find people like that, and it seems to me that she did a good job.
Megan's awesome.
When you find someone like that, you'll try to find a way to plug her into Loose Screw at this point.
Yeah.
Going forward.
And then, I've got a partner with this convention. I also got a partner with Method. So, financially, most of the stuff runs within Loose Screw, and I'll shift money in different directions. Yeah. So, for example, with Megan, like, let's say that my tattoo shop can't afford to hire her for what her price is, then I might have her, let's say her price is $1,000 a week, or a month, $1,000 a month. Let's just say I'm like, oh, that's too much for my shop. I might take $500, put it towards her for the shop, take $250 from my clothing line, and another $250 from Method, and then figure all that stuff out on there. And she's getting checks from 3 different places, but essentially she's getting what she needs, and I can kind of spread the wealth a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And she's actually my PR, more my publicist. Like, she makes the connections with the podcast, and I think NPR was here this weekend, which was cool.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, PBS was here. Yeah. So she makes all those connections and creates that stuff, and she helps create a voice. Because I'm a visual guy, so I'll put pictures out to kind of communicate everything. Where she's like, hey, nobody understands these stupid pictures you got. Let's write something for the people that are more, connect that way.
Yeah.
But anyway, she's my publicist. I also have a marketing team. And the marketing team is like the ones who do all the science when it comes to algorithms and everything like that.
Yeah. We haven't talked too much at all about Method, and I don't think I even had heard of it whenever we talked last in Eugene. How did it come about, and where is it? And it's like, I don't know, in its life. I mean, how long have you been doing it?
So when we were in Eugene, I was still like doing stuff on the back end. It took me 2.5 years to get everything, build all the bridges and stuff that were necessary to actually get it out. And I just dropped it in July or June 1st. And essentially it was just, you ever heard of that guy Blood Rush? He does ink racks. So I'm sure you've seen the ink racks.
Yeah.
It's like he does all these different designs, and you see the bottles horizontally.
Right.
And so when I saw that, and whenever I do business in general, I'm always trying to, and this is something I feel like I always want to talk about too, is whenever I do business in general, I always try to make sure that I am honest and fair with the people it might negatively affect, and either one, try to collaborate with them so that so I'm not like stepping on toes, or two, just give them the heads up. Hey, I'm going to do this. It's no disrespect, etc. And this was one of those cases. I saw what he had done, and I said, dude, that's a great idea. How much is it? And he was like, $350 or something like that. Start at $350. And I was just sitting there and I'm like, dude, that's kind of steep. Yeah. I was like, I have an idea for a modular way of doing this. And I was like, would you like to do it with me? And he was like, sure. And I was like, we'll split everything 50-50, all that stuff. And we started getting in it, and I think he just kind of lost interest in it. And he was like, oh, man, you just go ahead and do your thing. Yeah. And then I was like, look, man, as soon as I make $1 million, I'll give you $10,000.
Right, yeah.
And he was totally cool. And, man, it was just, I think a lot of times you just talk to people. Yeah. And I feel like that rides across with tattoo shops and stuff like that. If you're going to open up close to a tattoo shop, say something to them, Right. Like, you have the right to business anywhere you want. You can open up right across the street from someone. But you got to at least give them the respect of saying, hey, I'm opening up across the street from you, Yeah. Not that I think it's right, but you got to communicate. You know, I think a lot of times people aren't communicating out of fear and stuff like that, but it comes off as disrespect. Right. It's like giving people the respect. Same thing with this convention. Like if you're going to open up another convention in Richmond, just talk to me. I don't own Richmond. Right. I don't particularly want another convention in Richmond, but, I can't tell you what you can and cannot do. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think drives you? So let's take method as an example. If it's not like you had a lot of downtime before that, and just were like, I really need to find something to do. What do you think drives you and people like you to constantly start new projects and take on more when you already obviously have plenty on your plate?
Man. I really don't know, and I honestly I've been going to a counselor with my girlfriend because we both got problems and I'm really trying to figure out what that is. Why? I just can't stop moving. My brain's always moving. And when I see an idea and I'm like, I got to get this done. I got to do this. And it's just constant. My girl hates it. She's just like, don't take in any more projects. Don't take them. And then something comes up. I'm like, babe, I got to do this. I have to do this. And I don't know what it is. I don't really know where that drive comes from. Yeah. But I don't do anything else. Like I work until 2 o'clock in the morning and then I go to sleep. I wake up. I always get a sit down breakfast. Relax, get a coffee, and then boom, plow through the day, and it's that's it. It's 7 days a week.
Yeah, you put in 7 days a week.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, to be honest, I don't have anything else I want to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
My girl's like, "Hey, let's go do this thing," and I'm like, "Oh, I'm fucking bored." Every time I'm doing it, I'm like, I could be working, or I could be working on this project, or doing this painting, or Yeah.
Yeah.
It just feels more fruitful. Everything. It's more fruitful to do. For me, it's more fruitful to create these big projects and things.
Yeah. Let's transition since a lot of our viewer base is younger up and coming tattooers that are always looking to get into a better shop. A lot of people are starting out in wherever they landed to start. They don't have much control over it. They're trying to search out shops, whether it's to guest spot at or whether it's to move to, just to be around better artists. As someone that runs a successful shop, how many artists can you actually hold? How many stations do you have?
So I got 10. And here's the crazy thing where I know this is a segue, but I just want to tell you anyways. Okay. So what happened with my shop? I've had a couple I don't want to say mutinies, but like exodus, like mass exodus, and I understand how they happen and all that stuff, but it hurts every time. It's like. Regardless, it's like you care about these people on some sort of level. So when they leave. You're just like, it's kind of like, oh, man, I'm not good enough for you. The shop's not good enough for you. Yeah. That's how I feel most of the time. But anyways, I had, I think, 6 artists at one time. And then all of a sudden, everybody started coming. I had Christian from Ink Master. He was like, hey, man, I want to work at your shop. So he came. He worked at my shop. I had this girl who had a really great attitude, and she was super cool. And I was like, yeah, you can come in. And I started building my shop out for these artists, and they start working there. And then my admin team is like, I'm overwhelmed. We're supporting 10 artists now instead of 6. And so they're getting like frustrated. So then I hire people to support the artists, and then a couple of the artists dip out, and now I've got this bill of paying these admin, and I've got less artists. So then I got to go in and tattoo and work harder. So it's really just and it's always like this, and then maybe you fall down a little bit, but then it's just like this. So it's crazy,
that's a real problem, and it's something that we deal with it all the time. In addition, I don't know if I've ever told you about it, but in addition to tattooing and doing this podcast, I've got a pretty decent real estate business. I've got 60 single-family houses and a couple of office buildings. And I have the same kind of problem when it comes to maintenance and vacancies and things like that. So I can't hire full crews and keep them on all the time, because if we're 90% occupied, I don't need 10 people.
Right.
But as soon as everything seems fine, I'll have 9 or 11 empty houses out of nowhere, and then I have to find a way to get them all. We can't let them just sit empty.
Right.
So it's a problem that goes not just in tattooing, and every
Everything.
business owner has to deal with it.
In my mind, I'm like, I'm going to create this business, and it's going to flourish. And money's just going to come in, and da da da. It never doesn't work like that. And it's like all these little weird little things that you need to do. Building systems and stuff like that.
But having people to put those systems in place and actually work them is the challenge, because it's like, all right, I need this many folks now, but maybe not now, or that's that's always a big challenge. But
and I've kind of learned the kind of the strength of outsourcing. You know what I mean? Like I outsource my HR department, I outsource my accounting, outsource my publicist, stuff like that. I mean, I could have those in house, but having them like that is like, it's a lot easier to say, okay, I'm not trying to work with this one anymore. I can just bring another one in, and they already know, they're professionals at it. You have to retrain them every time.
Right. Well, where I was going with that to start is, you obviously make an effort to make just clients and artists happy. You're trying to do the best you can to get clients in the door here at the studio, and you're hiring admin people. At the show, and you're hiring admin people to support your artists at your shop. And I wonder if there's anything that artists should be looking for when they're looking to, like, say, guest spot at a shop, or they're looking to upgrade to they're at a street shop in a podunk town that would rather move to a bigger city like Richmond or like whatever. Do you have any thoughts? What would they look for?
Well, I think that I definitely want to talk about this a little bit. I think that there's this thing that happens in tattoo shops where it's like, okay, anybody that starts working here, they're at 50%, and then they have this kind of like structure, and they haven't dug into it a little bit more. So what I've tried to do is create a structure that kind of incentivizes the hard workers, because what will happen is you'll get a guy who come in there and work his ass off. He'll get a couple raises, and then he doesn't work as hard, and gets all loose with his schedule and everything. But what I would say is, trying to find someone who reflects what it is that you're going to put into the business. So if an artist is coming, if you're an artist and you're trying to get into a shop, and you think that you are a hard-working person, and you're really interested in art, and you're really interested in being honest and fair with your finances and all that stuff, then you want to find a shop that's doing that same thing. Obviously, if you like to party and it's more of like a luxury hobby or something like that, you find a shop where that's what they do. I think the issue I have with a lot of artists that come into my shop is I work really hard for my artists, work really, really hard for them. I promote the heck out of them. I try to help them. We pay for 100% of supplies. If they need a tattoo machine, we buy it. If they need needles, they need anything. There's not a thing that my artists have to pay for. We give them medical, we give them dental, we give them 401ks, we give them paid vacations, all that. But that comes with a price. You know what I mean? Like if I watch your dogs, then I kind of expect you to watch my dogs when I need it. Right. So finding a place that you feel like you can match what they're doing for you. I think a lot of the relationships that don't work, it's like I was saying, if I help you move and you don't help me move, chances are we're probably not going to be good friends, and I think a lot of times people come in and they expect more or whatever. It's like, and also being honest with yourself. You know, what is your value as an artist? I feel like a lot of artists think they're a lot more valuable than they are because they got, 14,000 Instagram followers or whatever. It's like what parts bring value to an artist? Like you're a hard worker, you have a good personality, you show up to work on time, you're low drama. Those are all things that don't revolve around art at all.
Right.
And they're super important. A lot of times you'll find an artist who's super awesome at art, but he can't show up to work on time.
Yeah.
And then you find the artists that maybe aren't as good at art, but they're super good people, and they don't cause drama, and they keep a good vibe within your shop. So
Yeah. I think that's a super important point, and the thing that I've noticed just over the years of doing this, even though the client, all they leave with is the tattoo, so obviously that needs to be the best possible tattoo that it can be, but they value that experience more than I put out tattoos that I'm like, they come back in, I'm like, man, I was off I wish I had like focused my light in a different way. I wish I'd really pushed contrast more here or there. They could care less about that. They had such a great time because of whatever, my bedside manner, maybe we watched a show on Netflix together, and they remember that experience so much. And I think a lot of times artists discount how valuable the experience of the tattoo more than the actual tattoo itself. Yeah.
Well, and that experience starts with your tattoo shop. If your tattoo shop has a good reputation, you're guilty by association. Right. So that means that you come into this situation where you have a good reputation now. Yeah. Like as soon as you start working at my shop, it automatically knocks you up a couple notches. Mm-hmm. And that sounds arrogant, but I know my shop has a good reputation, and with the locals. So it's like, you're coming into my shop, we're gonna get you booked up, we're gonna work for you. The people at the front of my shop, they're super sweet and nice and accommodating. So we're treating, if you bring clients into my shop, we're treating your clients super nice. Of course, we're treating our clients super nice. We got coffee machine, we've got food and snacks and stuff, and we just, that all comes with the percentage that you give to the shop.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a great answer, because it's not that there's a right or a wrong. There's probably nothing wrong with tattooing as a hobby and not putting 100% into it. And if you know that you're kind of lackadaisical, you don't show up on time, you don't put the work in, there is still a spot for you. It's just recognizing that spot.
Yeah, and I think it's just like everything. People are like, oh, traditional artists this, new school artists this. People that run their tattoo shops like this or like this, and it's just like, hey, everybody's got their own home. Don't knock this guy, because this guy, it's like me standing next to a bunch of short people. I'm going to look a little taller, like you got to have that contrast. You can't have good without bad. You can't have we were talking about before, we can't have a cruise ship and a pirate ship. That contrast is important.
Yeah.
And I just prefer to run a shop that's just a little more, accommodating to a career. I want my artists to, I tattooed for, I think it was like 12 years before I realized that tattooing really wasn't a career. I was like, man, the only way I'm going to make money is if I tattoo. And what happens when I can't tattoo? Where do we go from there? Mm-hmm. So what I've tried to do is just kind of create a situation where the artist can kind of build a career, get some 401ks going. If they break their leg or something, we've got insurance for them so it doesn't set them back. Yeah. We're taking insurance. We're taking their taxes out. We're matching them as a business. We're matching them 7.5%.
Yeah.
So we take a little bit of taxes out. So I mean, I hate it watching my friends and all these artists once a year. They're just like working their asses off essentially for free at the end because they got to pay these taxes.
Yeah. And that's just a little bit of the pirate mentality of this industry too. Those taxes are due all year, and I think that it's one of the things that's slowly changing. In shops, like there was no shop like that whenever I started tattooing. No one withheld taxes or anything like that. But say using health insurance as an example, well, my employer doesn't provide health insurance. I'm a tattooer. I'm a subcontractor. It's like, well, but you're a subcontractor that makes probably $150 an hour. Like, It's not that you can't afford insurance. You're choosing not to afford insurance.
Right.
You afford a lot of shit that's less important than insurance.
And then, who's going to pay for it when they break their leg? Yeah. We're going to have a GoFundMe account, and we're all going to try to take care of our buddy because he wasn't smart enough to put his money aside, So, obviously, I want to help people out. I really do. But I mean, you want to help people out. They're willing to help themselves too.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
And then the other side I think is really interesting about this is, I listen to this guy. What is his name? It's and his last name's like Pavanik or something like that. Super smart guy, and I love everything he says. But
He's a podcast or something?
He does like these little mini things on YouTube, but
Yeah.
first time I heard about him was on Joe Rogan, and he's an investor in a lot of tech companies and just builds companies up. But anyways, he said something like, he was like, as friends, we want to be socialists. You know, we want to like all work together to help each other. And he said, I can't remember the whole specifics, but he was like, once you get up to a certain level, then you start working into being capitalist. And then once you get to a certain level past that, then you go libertarian. He's like, it's smart to run that certain way. So when it comes to like tattoo shops, we're kind of like a family. So you want to run it more in a socialistic situation. You want to take care of each other. A lot of these tattoo artists are very liberal and they're very socialist, but when it comes to tattooing, they want to be capitalists.
Yeah.
It's like if you're trying to be an independent contractor in a tattoo shop with a bunch of other people, you're being a capitalist. If you're doing like the way that we run our business, it's more socialist. We all kind of put in to help each other. And I've always thought that way, you know, and people can think socialist is a bad thing. To me, working as a team to help each other come up. If you fall a little bit, I help you up. If he falls a little bit, help you up. If I fall, hopefully you guys help me up. Yeah. And so when you're running a shop that's like employee based, which is a blasphemous word in the tattoo world, you're all helping each other out. You know, it's like, and you have more invested in it. When you're doing, you know, independent contractor, I've had independent contractors in my shop, and they just fucking, they show up whenever. Their client, they might show up late for their client, which of course negatively affects my shop because the client doesn't know whether it's an independent contractor or an employee. Right. Their rooms are dirty. You know, it's just a bunch of, it's just they're separated. You know, they might come in and say something or whatever, but they're pretty separated. You know, when you're an employee, it's like, hey, you know, I've got my admin side. They want a raise. In order for them to get a raise, you guys got to put in a couple more billable hours per day or something like that. Yeah. And when you put it like that, that's how I usually say it because, you know, of course, everybody thinks you're rich when you're running a shop. But I'm like, I really want to give, you know, Valerie in my shop a raise because she's been kicking ass. Do you think she's been kicking ass? They're like, yeah. Well, in order to give her a raise, I need you to step it up a little bit, you know? Yeah. And she's busting her ass to help them and help their clients get through the door and make them happy. So
yeah,
you know.
it's great to that makes it's an inclusive way to approach it too. Like, hey, if you think that she deserves more, it shows that it's all related. You know, I think a lot of times, like you're saying, the tattooer probably thinks you have plenty of money anyways. Like, man, Jesse should pay the front desk a little more instead of pocketing all of it. It's like, well, in order for me to pay her a little bit more, you either need a few more tattoos or whatever. However, you can contribute more yourself. What whenever you made that transition to going to an employee kind of model, did you do it as people came in, or were there people that were subcontractors and you just said, hey, starting Monday, this is the way that it works? Yeah,
so that was definitely a push. That was the second exodus that kind of happened was, you know, when I always told people when I opened a shop, my goal was to make sure everybody in there had insurance. I knew it was something that was hard to do in the tattoo world, but I was a military guy. My dad was military, so I had free insurance my entire life. And then I went in the military, and I had free insurance. And then while I was in the military, I married a lesbian who was in the military, and I actually stayed married to her for 17 years. And I got free medical and free insurance all the way up, which is not the most honest thing, right?
Yeah.
So, but I've always felt like if there's anything in life that should be free, it's health. Yeah. You know? Yeah. It's like, I don't give a fuck about libraries or museums. Pay to get into those. Yeah. But give people health. Give them the opportunity to be healthy. Yeah. And so once I opened my shop, I'm like, I'm getting everybody in here insurance. So I start weaving through all this information and going through all this shit and AFLAC and everything, and you just realize it's not fucking easy. Yeah. And even when I have the employee situation set up, it's even crazier because the insurance company says, well, you know, 60% of the people, I think it's 75% of the people in your shop that are full-time have to be getting health insurance, right? Oh. So then you got these weird things where you have to say, okay, well, this person has to work 39 hours instead of 40 hours, and then trying to figure out how these numbers work so that everything's, I mean, it's fucking crazy. Yeah. It's a lot of work. Right. But to me, it was like the direction I have to go. You know, I want to take care of the people in my shop, and hopefully they can recognize that. So were you saying that was part of the exodus? You did have people leave over that? Yeah, definitely. Okay. So this is the way I had it work. I've told people since I opened my shop in 2011, I want everybody to have insurance in here, and I want to figure out how we can do that, right? And not that I was going to force them to do it or anything. It was just like, this is what I want to provide for you. And it took me a while to get to a point, and I finally started figuring out how to do it. And once I figured out, it started coming to fruition. We have meetings quarterly at my shop, and we just sit down and talk about everything that's new, et cetera, et cetera. And we actually have we have lunch together, and we all go out and do paintball or bowling or something like that.
Yeah.
But then what started happening is I started seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, and I told everybody, I was like, hey, I'm starting to move in this direction. I want to let you guys know, if you've been tattooing at the shop for X amount of years, then you're going to have a choice of being an independent contractor or an employee. If you've been tattooing for less than that, then you're going to be forced to move to an employee status.
Yeah.
This was 6 months out. 3 months come, our next meeting, I said, okay, we got 3 months. Right around that time, people started kind of like taking off. And then, at the end, I've got 6 artists now. There's still a couple there that I know that aren't super into the idea. But I think once they realize how much pressure it takes off of them with the taxes and all this stuff. And one of my artists just went on a 2-week vacation, and he didn't have to think about not making money because we paid him exactly what we did is we take the last year, we take the average of what you made that year, and we pay you that per week when you're gone. So it's like you don't want to skip a beat. You're making money. You're going on your vacation. Everything's the same, Yeah. Because as tattoo artists, if we're not working, not only are we paying for the vacation, we're also paying the fact we're not making money. So it's almost like a double thing. So
Yeah.
it's just extra pressure on you,
Yeah. I would imagine you really recognize that value when you have a health scare or something like that.
Right.
That's the crappiest thing about insurance is that you're shelling it out every month or it's coming out of your check or whatever it is, and it seems so worthless until you actually need it. And I think that's when people recognize the difference. But like you were saying earlier, we're so dependent. Not that I hate to say we're so dependent on GoFundMe because I feel like I'm like taking stabs at people who get help through it. And I know a lot of great tattooers and other people. I think it's a great thing, but I hate to see it being treated as an insurance policy. Like, well, worst comes to worst, I'll just
do a GoFundMe.
do a GoFundMe.
Yeah, and I stand on the same page as you. There's a ton of different reasons on why people would set up a GoFundMe, and I'm not saying they're all, wrong. I want to help my friends out, but there's some times where it's like, hey man, you got to make some smart decisions, and I'm willing to help you out. My best friends, they do dumb shit all the time. I want to help them out, and I end up helping them out anyways. Yeah. But it is a little frustrating. It's like all you had to do is, not put that box in the middle of the ground, in the middle of the floor, and you wouldn't have tripped over it.
Right. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. All right. So what happens now? The last day of the convention, got it breaking down. How much downtime for this do you have before you start planning for next year's show?
None. We go straight in. We have a post-con meeting that we have on Thursday. Yeah. We sit down. We talk about everything we did right, everything we did wrong, and then we just go in. We get the artwork from Dave Koenig, and I always tell him, I'm like,
why wasn't he here?
I guess he hurt his fist, or he called it a mitt. He hurt his mitt. So he does a lot of, he does a lot of UFC type stuff or MMA, I guess I should call it. Yeah. So I don't know what he did. I didn't dig too much.
Gotcha. Okay.
But we always tell him, we say, hey man, we need the artwork by the day the convention drops. So usually he'll just bring it to the show or whatever, and then we start going into cleaning it up, making it ready for the internet, designing it, and then flipping everything. So we have a event set up on Facebook for 2019 that we make a new one for 2020 with the new artwork. We start, we got to start talking to sponsors early because they spend their money, way in advance. Yeah. And there's artists out there that get a little frustrated because we hit people up in May every year, which is a good 6 months out from the show. Right. And we give them 1 month to get their stuff in, It's get your stuff in, and then whatever holes we got left at the end, then we start going on to we have like a waiting list, and we just go on the waiting list and pick the best artists with the best personalities.
Right.
I always tell everybody, they say, how do I get in your show? I was like, I pick people that have good personalities and people that have good work. Yeah. And, sometimes you don't have to have both. It's like, well, if you have great work and you get a shitty personality, you're probably not going to get invited back. So.
Right. Yeah, that's a great way to do it. I mean, it makes it's so much more fun for everyone else. Like, I'm always excited. Like, I always tattooing with these two at conventions. I'm always excited to see who we end up next to, and like what if it's always people I don't know, and it shows. The shows. It seems like where the people around you are going to be like excited to be there and like and introduce themselves and hang out, and make a new friend over the weekend. I love that. I think that's a great way to choose tattooers.
And I really like. I mean, I find it hard to believe that other promoters do it. I mean, I'm sure people like Derb and, I know LT Woods and like Stebley and that, the shows that you could tell they give a shit.
Yeah.
But I find it hard to believe that most shows put in as much work as I do, just curating where people are going to be sitting and why they're going to be sitting there. And, anytime anybody comes to me with anything in the show where they're like, yeah, man, my place was a little off or something like that, like Mind's Eye. We put them in the place upstairs, and they just didn't do good. So I said, look, man, next year I got your spot. I'm putting you in the right place. I want you to be happy with this convention. I want you to stay, Yeah. So when I'm curating, I'm saying, okay, I'm going to put, Jake Meeks next to, the East, because I think that those are good people to be next to each other, and I kind of team people up. There's one year I put the Tattoo Giant with Clean Rock One. They're both new school artists. They don't know each other. And I was like, man, Clean's cool as shit. The Tattoo Giant's gonna fucking love Clean. And just putting them together.
That's probably kind of a fun problem to solve, like puzzle to put together too, huh?
And then for the most part, I mean, you can. That's another thing I really like about my show is like people come to this show, they don't know each other. You force them to be in a booth together, and next thing you know, they're fucking hanging out with each other. I mean, I think was it Dave Koenig, Joshua Bowers, Phil Garcia, and Gunner became like freaking lovers at my show
Really?
like 3 years ago, and they're just like, I love watching them hang out together, and they're and I know they knew each other before, but we put them in a booth together, and next thing you know, they're fucking like homies.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that's I could definitely tell the attention that went into the entire show. I was thoroughly impressed with it, and like
Thanks,
I said,
man.
I hadn't been here in so long, but it was it was awesome. I loved it, and I had never, like I said, I normally travel with Ty and Robin. We do a lot of shows together, and whenever I kind of came in at the last minute, I was like, oh, I got a half a booth. Who the hell? I've never been like set with someone that I don't know. I've always found a booth mate, so I was scared of it. That's why I reached out to Baxter. It's like, hey, man, you have a booth mate? But I do get that. I kind of wish that maybe if that happens again, I'll just see where I land.
It's fun, man. I mean, and it helps the curation process because it's like the first year we're like, okay, we'll give you a booth, but we really need to know who you're bringing with you. Whereas now it's like you get in a half booth, and you can say I want to be with Nick Baxter, or I want to be with Joe Schmo or whatever. But if I look at Joe Schmo and his shit's not that good, I'm just gonna be like, hey man, sorry, we don't have room. You know, and we put you in with Carlos Rojas or something, and you're like, oh shit, So it's just trying to get, and I find it hard to believe that anybody's going to be sorely disappointed with the people we put them in with, because most of the guys in the show are fucking awesome, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, man, I thoroughly enjoyed it. Do we hit it all?
I think so.
Sweet, man. Thanks so much for taking the time. I loved
man.
it. Yeah,
thank you, Jake.
Great.
I appreciate it, man. Always.
Thank you. Thank you guys for supporting what we do. We really appreciate you, and we'll see you next time on Fireside Tattoo Podcast.
Woo!
Can I clap that board out? Do we do out claps? No, that's cool. I'm good. Thanks.